All right, all right, all right. So it looks like we are live and we'll be ready to go. Getting in here shortly. You're seeing my face today instead of George's because he's at a charity event with Charles Haley. So you have me and our guest Ryan Fowler. But before I get into that, now um, George usually does a run out, and I was racking my brain all week trying to figure out what do I have that's inspiring for our audience to talk about before we actually get into what we're here for. Um, I thought of a few things, but I thought most of those things didn't apply to our broader audience because our audience is generally older than I am. So most of what I was gonna say was geared towards the youngins, and frankly, we maybe 10% of our audience is that. So, what I'm going to share is a little bit of what I'm calling level up, just mindset and thoughts about how to be better at your craft. And I don't know who needs to hear it, so I'll keep it brief. Just anything is better than nothing, whether it's trying to get to the gym, uh, 15 minutes, if that's all you got, that's better than 0 minutes. Just to walk around the block, whether it's getting on the bike, um, maybe it's learning a new language. Any amount of time more than you're expending right now is uh, is more beneficial than doing the status quo. So, with that being said, we're going to get into our A game talk today with Ryan Fowler. We're going to talk about what we thought was exciting, maybe what we were a little bit disappointed in. We'll also talk about some things regarding the transfer portal since that opened on Monday. Maybe even talk about some taxes since that also happened on Monday, at least for people who waited. Um, I did, but not because I was lazy. So let's get into it. Teague's Take starts now. So Ryan, I'm just gonna go ahead and bring you in here already, and we're just gonna hop right into it. Well, actually, no, we're not. First, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. It's good to be on with you, and man, I'm excited for you and I to kind of just break down some college football. And I hung out with your dad for a good portion of the weekend, a little bit, and got an education. I sat beside him at a game, which you probably take for granted, right? Because you've watched a lot of games
Yeah,
with your old man. But it was educational because he would be like, "Hey, see this, see this, see this," and I can't wait when he gets back on to kind of break it down and with Teague's take. But I learned a lot, man. I taught him a few things about the media side of things, and he
man,
taught
I
me a
heard
lot about
about it.
football.
Yeah, he
He
called.
did.
Yeah, he. I don't know if it was the same day. I think it was the same day because he texted me and he told me to call him, and it was like 8 o'clock. He said, "Call me when you get a chance. Need to talk about the spring game." I was like, "All right." Well, we had just been to a little kid's birthday party. My daughter fell, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet off of this bounce house, and I was a little stressed out. I was all right. Well, now we're about to have a phone call, and he was telling me all about how you showed him around, and there were places you took him to that he said he wouldn't have found on his own, which I believe it because I know he wouldn't have just wandered around until he found stuff. He probably would have just stayed where he was at and tried not to cause a ruckus. But I know he was very appreciative for you showing him how to be a media member instead of uh, some plebeian standing with the media pass, not knowing where to go.
He looked like a professional, man, and I introduced him to a lot of people. Introduced him to some of the associate athletic director here in Alabama, and I saw Greg Byrne, and I was gonna. I think he already knows Greg Byrne. I'm pretty sure that George. I was on a first name basis with him, but I introduced him to, Matt Self as director of compliance. To tell you how important Matt Self is, Matt went to Washington with Greg Byrne to interview Kalen DeBoer. And so if you think about Matt Self, and so I introduced him to him, a bunch of media guys, and they were telling him different stories. Like there was one guy that I introduced him to that was probably the elder statesman of our media group here in Tuscaloosa, and he was telling George like high school plays that he remembers George making in high school. Like I'm just going, do you really store that much information in your head? I mean, is that really, what you, yes. And he's telling him, hey, well, listen, I remember when you made this play. I'm going, man, I mean, do you realize how long that's been? And so he's telling him, he knew all about it. And then I introduced him to another guy that went to school down in Montgomery that knew him. And that was a medic here at Alabama that's probably been 40 years that he's been, probably 30 years that he's been at the University of Alabama. So a lot of people, man. George is, for those that already know, George is a celebrity here. And a lot of people, when they comes back on campus, they're ask him to relive different moments or different plays or tell a Coach Stallings story or just something like that. And it was fun. It was fun. And I tell you, man, I'm one of those that I get something from A-Day, and I'm sure we're going to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a lot of people that are so negative about A-Day, and they don't get anything out of it. I do. I get something out of A-Day. I like to watch, and I like to watch guys that we would probably never see in the regular season to see how much growth that they've been able to grow. If you try to make it as an individual and you watch certain positions, I think you get something out of it. Now, if you're going in there and you're wanting, to see 11 players that are ready to play SEC football, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, you're probably not walking out and going, hey, man, I really, really learned something from that particular game. But, I'm sure we'll dive into it and we'll talk about it. But I enjoyed A-Day, and, it was fun to watch Kalen DeBoer. And if you don't mind, I'll tell you a quick story about Kalen DeBoer. I've told Kalen a couple times on the air what A-Day was going to be like. And I've tried to tell him, listen, it's crazy. I mean, there's some crazy Alabama fans, and crazy in a good way, not in a bad way. But when he walked out of he had went to the Walk of Champions where they have the permanent captains and the handprint and the footprint. He had went to that event, and then he went directly to the stadium, and then he waited on his team, which is probably, 15, 20, 30-minute gap. So he came out of the locker room, and he came out of the two sliding glass doors. So you could just kind of imagine real tinted windows. These two sliding glass doors open, and Kalen DeBoer emerges from the middle, and he looks out at this crowd of, probably 30,000 Alabama fans. And this smile ear to ear. I mean, it was like kid on Christmas morning, like, wow. I mean, he was blown away. Now, you remember, that's an A-Day. That's not that's not an Alabama football game playing LSU or playing Auburn or Tennessee. That's a spring game. But you could see that face, that expression was, man, wow, this place is special. And he talked about that moment in the post-game press conference where he said, Walk of Champions, wow, to be able to see that in person, now I know because people can tell you, hey, I can't wait to see Walk of Champions, but really you don't understand it until you go out and you see it as they walk down through all those national titles. That's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool tradition here in Tuscaloosa, but it was a fun moment.
Yeah, it is. So quickly, before we really dive into things, I want to go back because you said you had introduced my dad to a medical professional. I don't remember what his actual title is, but
yeah, he's just a team medic. He's just a team medic here at Alabama.
So I heard that team medic, and I know he listens a lot. So I want him to know that I received your request to break down the film of the strip. So I will do that. I won't do it today because I got to get the film. It's probably on VHS somewhere so I can get good quality. And I don't even know if VHS is good quality these days. But I will find it, and we'll make that happen. I also know that Keon Keeley's dad has been listening to us as well, so I wanted to give a shout-out to you, sir. Thanks for the kind words. We hope that the show continues the way it has been, and that once the season starts up, we'll be able to start ramping this thing up again for sure. Ty Alexander asks, where is Mr. Teague? He is at a charity event with Charles Haley for, I forget what cause. He sent me the thing, and I was supposed to remember, but I'm not a radio professional like Ryan Fowler, so I don't have any notes to actually tell you where he went. But I do know that him and my mom are doing a charity event today. So let's get into it. So with the spring game with A-Day, as you said, I do want to kind of temper expectations for most people who are watching, because like you said, if you go into A-Day expecting to see 22 players working together ready to play a game, you're probably not going to get that from just about anywhere. We have to remember what A-Day is, and we call it a spring game. We make a big deal out of it being a spring game, but really what it is a scrimmage. It's a practice that fans are allowed to attend, right? So setting the bar for what I would consider high-level championship football in the middle of April is not what you really should be doing when you're watching these games. I agree with you, Ryan, of like, hey, if you're watching individuals and you're trying to find growth and see what they're doing better versus last year, or see what they look like incoming freshmen or anything like that, I think that's the way to go about it. Now, we do also have to be careful with those freshmen coming in that might ball out on A-Day, because let's not forget that there is a guy named Ajayi Hall that exists, who also balled out on A-Day and then was nowhere to be found after that. So I'm saying that to say there are a lot of things that look good, and there are a lot of things that didn't look so good that we got to see for, I guess, 2.5 hours on a random Saturday in April. And those things are going to be very different when we get to late August and September, right? So tell me some things that you learned or that excited you watching the spring game.
Well, you got to start with the running backs. Wow, that is a deep room. There's, and you almost wonder, you think about this with the deep rushing attack that they had last year, but then you also think about combining that, and you see Justice Haynes, you see Jam Miller, which was the MVP of the A-Day game, but then it's the guys behind them. It's Richard Young, it's Daniel Hill. Also, you combine with what Jalen Milroe, the starting quarterback, is going to be able to provide in that rushing attack. Guys, that's a lot. I mean, you're a defensive coordinator. To me, the best way to beat a great defensive team is to be balanced. If you could be balanced where you're not run heavy or you're not pass heavy, then it keeps everybody guessing, right? What is he trying to do? If you get that rushing attack cranked up, I feel pretty comfortable that we're going to have a good passing attack under Kalen DeBoer, that this is going to be one of those that we're going to be able to score some points. I thought the wide receivers, I'd like to see more maybe on the passing attack, but I think Germie Bernard is going to be a guy that we're going to be able to count on. I really like what they're doing with Kendrick Law. I know inside the building they call him K-Law. He's a big physical kind of wide receiver. I mean, if you look at him, he could play. I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. I mean, he kind of looks like a linebacker a little bit. I mean,
but he is fast.
Yes. And so they ran him a couple times on those jet sweeps or fly sweeps, wherever you call. Some people call them jet sweeps, some people call them fly sweeps. But they ran a couple times with him. So you just started kind of going through the numbers, and you begin to kind of look at this team. In 15 days, it's been about the buy-in. Or hold on. Kalen DeBoer corrected me a couple times. Okay, I say buy-in. He says buying in. So he says they're buying into what I'm trying to teach. They've not completely bought in. So he's corrected me on a couple times, and he even made a reference that I keep having to tell people that they're buying in. It's an action, not completely bought in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's been my biggest takeaway is the attitude. And JT, I'll be honest, I was actually on the phone when you called with a beat reporter, and I was talking with him about, well, why has Alabama not had any portal entries? Because we're more than 24 hours into this transfer portal system, and I know we're going to talk about A-Day. I'm going to kind of tie all this back together. It tells you a lot about this team chemistry of this team. And Tyler Booker shared a story after A-Day that I think is a reflection on this coaching staff. And I think it deserves to be shared. He said he was at practice, and he left and went to study hall. He said he looks down at his phone, and he says, wow, Coach Sheridan's calling me. He answers the phone, and he thought, and first thing goes through his mind, he goes, okay, Coach is calling me. It's never happened before. What did I do wrong? Is there something that, because he is part of the leadership team, is there something he needs from there? It was simply, hey, Tyler, I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you. You've taken a big leadership responsibility. You've been a big part of the glue that's held this team together when Coach Saban retired. And I just want to say thank you. I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you. To hear him tell that story, I went, wow. And it was one of those that's, like you say, what is my takeaway? Talking to Tyler Booker after the game and letting him illustrate that story. Then when you combine that, and listen, I'm going to tell people, Alabama's going to lose people in this transfer portal. We're going to lose people in this transfer portal. There's going to be kids that will go into this system. But think about where we were at, 80, 90 days ago when Kalen DeBoer took over. The portal was full of Alabama guys because they could. Now you're seeing these guys be tied in. And I think those relationships that you can build with those coaches is now paying dividends, even in a short time. And that's just one story around Tyler Booker. And I've heard of others, how this coaching staff has really built strong bonds with these players. So I take all of that from A-Day and the running backs. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. But it's to look back and say, wow, this team really believes in Kalen DeBoer and this coaching staff. That's my takeaway from A-Day is, yeah, they're not where they need to be, but they're not where they were at. 4 months ago, they were kind of walking in the desert, trying to figure out which way they were going to go. That's the part that I like. I like the attitude of this football team. And there's a different energy in that building.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna change it up a little bit because as I'm just watching on TV from my couch, so I don't get to hear all the stories and see the things around it. But one thing that surprised me was, especially since we did our breakdown a couple of times actually of Kalen DeBoer and what his offense looked like at Washington. And what we knew from Washington was they ran inside zone to death at Washington. So we knew coming in that at least Kalen DeBoer really liked inside zone. And as I'm watching the spring game, I'm seeing guys pulling left and right. I mean, it was a whole lot of gap scheme, power, counter, possibly some trap. And that was exciting because that is the run game to me looked reminiscent of the run game of old, right? Where we're actually starting to mash people a little bit, and not so pass happy, I guess. Now, I do think that Kalen DeBoer, as an offensive coordinator, can adapt his offense to what the personnel that he has. And I understand why we threw the ball a whole lot in the past. And when you've got Heisman winners such as Bryce Young and you got Tua and Mac Jones, quarterbacks of that ilk, you tend to throw the ball a lot. But I went back and I kind of look back at when Kalen DeBoer was at Indiana with Michael Penix, and we saw Michael Penix throwing the ball around all this year, but in Indiana, he was running the ball quite a bit. So that also makes me a little bit excited that we might actually see Jalen Milroe unleashed a little bit. And it looks like the line has taken a huge step forward, at least with chemistry. Now, we'll get to a little bit of what was going on defense here in a second. So I can't say that the O-line is totally ready, but they made me feel a whole lot better right now than they did at the end of the season last year. So that's always looking up. The running backs look good. I would like to see a little bit more from our receiver group. I do like 5, Germie Bernard, and I do like Kendrick Law. Kendrick Law's very, very fast. Germie Bernard looks like a very good receiver. But I think they are going to have to get better at top of the route things. And we heard this from some of the coaching staff after the game. The skill set and the athletic ability is there, but they've got to get better at running routes. And something I was talking to my dad about when we were having this conversation beforehand, when he called me leaving A-Day, was so not only did I played corner and receiver in college, so I had to go through individual on both sides of the ball. And learning the offensive playbook and the defensive playbook. And let me tell you, offensive practice is hands down so much easier than defensive practice. It actually made me mad when I had to be defensive individual that day instead of offense, because they're over there with the helmets off walking around and we're on defense having to hit stuff. But we would work on things like we wouldn't even run our routes, really. So if you had a 15-yard route, we'd actually pretend that we already ran about 8 to 10 yards of that route and just work on the top of the route. So for our viewing audience, when we're talking about the top of the route, I mean, just thinking about things like a dig, which is just a deep end, basically. You have to know when you're making your break. Is your defender directly behind you? Is he outside of you? Is he inside of you? Or is he in front of you? And you have to make a decision on what your path is going to be to get to a certain spot at the right time based on when your defender is. And it's very easy when the guy's behind you, right? The guy's behind you, he's chasing you, you can just run the route. But when the guy's not behind you, because maybe you didn't actually do your job getting through the first part of your route, now you have to, it's the art of getting open, right? Quarterbacks can throw you open, but you also have to help your quarterback out. You have to get open, you have to break leverage, and you have to be at a certain spot at a certain time. And I'm not sure that we're there yet. Can they get there? Absolutely. They got plenty of time to figure that stuff out. Are we there right now? I'm not sure, but I know that's something that the staff had mentioned that they need to get better at, and I agree. And I think you'll start seeing that a lot more. And I don't know if they're going to bring guys in or not, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But offensively, very nice to see what they were trying to do. There was a lot of motion happening that didn't look like it was just eye candy motion, just emotion. There was an intent behind it. Both my dad and I thought that they were playing games against our defense, which is something where, people are looking at the defense and say, hey, they didn't look very good, which I need to remind people or tell you for the first time that anytime an offense and a defense are learning something new at the same time, the defense is going to be behind every time, 100% of the time. They're always going to be behind. And I have this fight with my offensive coordinator every year because we get new freshmen coming in, right? Just like Alabama does. We got the new kids coming in. I got to teach the system all over again. And you start with your base defense. And it's like day one, you get one coverage. We're going to go through one coverage, and we're going to go through most of your checks. right? We're going to go through, well, this is how you line up trips. This is how you line up to a tight end. If they got two backs, if it's gun, whatever. And you're working through all that, and you kind of throw some motions in. And then because the offense can take their play and put it on a card, and all you got to do is memorize it, the offense gets out here and they line up in something stupid like Kalen DeBoer did, putting 4 guys on one side. And the defense is like, yo, what do we do to 4 guys? So now you're doing that, and then he motions a dude back over, and he lines up at tight end, and everybody's like, what are we supposed to do? And every year, so this is a little bit of a rant, but also just got to give him some insight. Every year, it's like day 2, you're already having to cover 5 wide, empty set, no backs. And you're like, hey, come on, OC. Like, we haven't. I know it's easy for you to tell your guys what to do because you can just draw it up and you can say, hey, we're not actually going to run the route from over here. You're going to motion over, and it's just going to be like this other thing. But the defense is having to read and react all the time. And once you start throwing those wrinkles in, the processing for defense gets a little bit slower because you're still learning it, as well as Kane Womack talking about how the technique on their pattern matching is changing. So I'm excited about that. It didn't particularly look great yet, but I'm excited that he's teaching. He wants the DB's eyes on the quarterback, not turning to the receiver. So he's teaching more zone eyes so that our athletes can be athletes and they can see the ball thrown and make plays in the football. It's going to take a while to learn how to play that well, but I want to hear your thoughts on what you thought about the defense, because I have more, and I can sit here and talk about it for the next 45 minutes uninterrupted. But I want to let you jump in here and tell me what you saw from the defense. What do you think? What were your takeaways from the game, at least defensively?
Well, okay, and you're a defensive coordinator, so let me ask you this question. And I like what Kelly there brings up. I thought the vanilla, and I think Coach DeBoer even mentioned that on one of the ESPN telecasts, that they were running a lot of vanilla looks. But you mentioned that as I'm sitting here processing, okay, Mark May, which is one of my favorite analysts, because I always enjoyed him on ESPN with Lou Holtz and Reese Davis, and they would do the college football final. And he said one of the frustrating things about Alabama is you always knew exactly what they wanted to do, whether it's offense or defense. So as I'm sitting there listening to you break that down, is there a chance that now Alabama is not going to be as predictable? Because
I think so, yes, because as much, and this is, to me, this is really what's exciting about the offense, looking at it from a defensive lens, is that as Kelly said, and as Coach DeBoer had said, they want to keep things vanilla, right? And in my head, vanilla is, yep, we're going to line up in 2x2. We're going to get in the 3x1. We're going to run our inside zone and our power or whatever, and we're going to run our basic concepts. And what we saw was we're going to line up in quads, and then we're going to move this guy over here, and he's going to be a tight end alone. We're going to line up like in a tackle eligible where Tyler Booker could actually go out for a pass. And then we're going to motion a guy so that he can't. And we're going to get in this other formation. And then we're going to run these read options. We're going to be throwing screens out to the flat. You got jet sweeps. You got deep balls. You got all this kind of stuff. And if he's calling that vanilla, it's kind of, it's like, dude, like this is, this
all right,
is.
but what does that say though about this team that they've made that quick transition? I mean, because it's kind of like riding a bicycle. They rode a bicycle this way for this length of time, and maybe that was not a good illustration. But now in 14 practices, going into 15, that they're comfortable enough that they can do some of these things. I mean, players. I understand. I mean, football players, highly smart individuals. I mean, some of the terminology that you guys throw it around, and the quick think that that you guys are able to come up with. But what does it say about this team that it's kind of like you look at Jalen Milroe. I saw a lot of improvement. Now the stats were not what you wanted. He had some drops there of 3 for 9. but there's also a lot more on his plate too. I mean, he's having to do a lot more. And to be honest, going into that spring game, I wanted to see Milroe take a couple of steps. I thought he did. I thought when, I had a quarterback coach on today that kind of shared some thoughts. He said, man, his footwork, wow. I mean, from where it was at in the fall to where it is now, he said he looked more comfortable. So, in other words, you're studying for this big test, but it's a bigger test, but you're able to do it and look more comfortable. I mean, so it's like it's more material. I hope I'm trying to make sense, but it's like it's more stuff to learn, but they look comfortable. So I walked up to Deontae Lawson and I said, I want you to explain. I know I'm all over the place here, but I'll hopefully tie it in together. I asked Deontae Lawson, I said, Deontae, I said, tell me this. Is this more of a complex system? Is it simpler? Is it player friendly? And both Deontae Lawson looked at me and said, it's easier to learn. That they've made it where it's easier to learn. That's not saying that they're going to be elementary on a lot of these things, but as the players have a chance, they don't have to like study. Yeah, they have to study, but they less time thinking. I thought Alabama many times would try to overthink stuff, and I think Coach Saban was he was a perfectionist, right? He was an overthinker. He overanalyzed. I get in trouble that all the time. I try to overanalyze clips, but walking out of that A-Day, I'm just going, man, this team is further ahead than probably Nick Saban's first spring practice. That they bought in quicker to a completely new system, offense, defense. Yeah, I'm sure there's some concepts and there's some similarities, but it's a total different system. That's not your typical A-Day. It just says a lot about this team and the guys that are here to where this Alabama football team is right now. And to be honest, I couldn't be more prouder of a group of guys than these guys right here because they want to be at Alabama. They could have hit that portal back in January too. And I kept telling the fans, I said, show them respect. Go to the game. Go to A-Day. You gripe and you grumble when these players hit this portal. Reward them. And they did. 72,000 to show up and say, you know what, I got you back. I'm going to support you guys. And I think that's why you're seeing this portal for Alabama be very short on the football side. Basketball, yeah, we could talk about that, but a lot of basketball portal entries. But so far, not one portal entry. That's a shock for me. It tells you about the chemistry of this football team there.
Well, I think that a lot of it is a testament to coaching and the ability to teach, and that's something that I learned the hard way from my first year as a defense coordinator to the second year. My first year as a defense coordinator, we continued to run what we had been running in previous years. Part of it is the reason we changed. Part of it is just because that wasn't really my personality and what my philosophy was as defense coordinator. But what I learned was just because you had been running it for so long, if it's not yours and you don't, and I won't use the word believe in it because I did believe in it. I'd seen it work for the previous 10 years. But because it wasn't my system, so to speak, I was not a very good teacher. So on defense, we were not a very good defense. Why? Because the kids were confused. Were they confused because it was hard? No. They were confused because at the time, their defense coordinator was not a very good teacher. He could tell you what to do. He knew the playbook inside and out. He could tell you exactly where you're supposed to be, but if they don't understand as well as you do, they're never going to play as fast, right? So we talk about being undisciplined, which I think we've said a couple of times about either side of the ball in the past. One thing that I've learned, I think, is that discipline is not it's not something that you have or don't have. And this is what I tell my players: is discipline is an emotion, and that means it's an emotion just like love or anger or sadness. Um, when you don't have confidence and you don't understand what you're being asked to do and you don't understand what you're supposed to be doing, that makes you undisciplined because you're doing things to achieve that goal because you don't feel that what you're being told to do is the right way to get it done. So all of that, I think, is a testament to Coach Kalen DeBoer and his staff that they were able to come in. And I also don't like to use the word simplify because you said it, and I agree with, simplify doesn't mean simplistic. Simplistic means we're doing the same thing all the time. That's where the predictability comes in. Simple just means easy to understand. You can be complex with a simple system. Oh, and I've lost you there.
Okay, I'm here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. No, I said great explanation. I love the. You did a much better job explaining the simplification than I did. I enjoy that type of wording because I heard it from Deontae Lawson. I heard it from Amari Cooper in 2013, 2014 when Doug Nussmeier left and Lane Kiffin came in. And I asked Amari Cooper straight to his face. I said, "Hey, what do you like about this system?" He said, "It's player friendly." And I went, "What does that mean?" I mean, does that mean that it's, in my head, I'm as an elementary football person, nowhere near where you're at. And Amari Cooper is just telling me, no, I don't have to think. I can just play football. I can play football. I can understand it, but I can just play football. I can literally play football. And sometimes I think we do overthink this game a little bit. Sometimes.
Yeah. And there's man, I wish I could remember his name. It was one of my dad's teammates at the Cowboys, and I remember sitting in the stands watching the Cowboys game with him, and he's not a true X's and O's guy. I'm not gonna insult the man's intelligence. He played in the league. He understands what's going on, but I'll never forget sitting in the stands, and he goes, he's kind of doing the Tony Romo, right? He's just like telling you exactly what's gonna happen, and he just kept looking, but he's like, man, this game ain't that hard, and it's really not. And as I've learned to become a better coach, you look at things that are happening in the NFL, their schemes, and you realize even at my level in high school, we're still running the same shit. And I grab clips and I show it to our guys because you always got a few that's like, man, how come we don't do whatever? And they do it, and I'll grab a clip and be like, we're doing the same thing. You just ain't doing it right. That's why it don't work because he's doing it like this and you're not. So those, I really enjoy seeing and talking about this side of the game of like how you actually progress and what that process is.
Me too.
And I think that Saban obviously did a great job of that, but we always said trust the process, but we never really knew what the process was. And I'm kind of figuring that out myself on like what, at least, my offense coordinator says it's not the way, it's just a way. And I try to remember that when I'm seeing Coach DeBoer set up his spring game where it's just offense versus defense instead of having your ones and twos versus your twos and ones. And it's like, hey, he's got to have his program the way that he wants to have his program, and there's no single way to do things. There are just many ways to do them, and you just have to be very good at what you do, and you have to believe in it. So,
hey, let me also add this to it too, because you talk about mental and you talk about thinking. And when do you guys run sprints at practice? Because I'm going to share. Okay, let me tell you something. And I've been around a lot of football. I've always heard the end, right? The end, the end, the end, the end, the end. Let me tell you what they're doing in Alabama now. they're coming together as a meeting at the end of practice, like maybe like 20 minutes before practice ends, and they run their sprints. Then they come back and run their 2-minute drills.
Oh, yep.
And so
Yeah, we do that too.
I asked why. And because I'd never seen it, because I'd always seen the Nick Saban system, right? They do this, they do this, they do this, they do this, they do this. I mean, it was like programmed. And he said, no, what it does is it improves the focus, the level of mental, because we all know when you're tired, it's kind of like shooting a free throw, right? If you're tired, you begin to lose that. You know, the other day we ran Clemson to death, right? I mean, we ran them to death. Those kids couldn't hit free throws. They're like 85% free throw shooters, but they were so tired because Alabama had ran them to death. So what they do is they do the sprints and they all the gassers, and then they're tired. Okay. Then they go back out and they're forced to think, right? You got to think beyond just your level of concentration. And so I got to thinking, okay, is that because we only had 6 penalties?
Mm-hmm.
And you also have to remember, we're judged on both sides of the ball at the same time. So you're judging 85 plays offensively and 85 plays defensively. So you're judging the 2 different, I mean, it's a lot of game. There was only 6 penalties in that entire game. That is a lot for units that are now learning their new system. So I just thought that concentration level that they're doing with a mental focus, that's got to be working. I mean, it just.
Yeah, I mean, like and that's that's all where I'm, all those kind of things tie back into what I believe when I say disciplines and emotion, is because when you're tired, that's when you're. The 2 times that I can say that I thought that Alabama overtime, any football team really overtime, has been undisciplined is when they're tired late game or when they're emotional. When they're either mad because they're losing, they're anxious, whatever it is. That's why I put discipline in that category, because when you can start removing those emotions, when you can remove the fatigue, that's when if you can fight through that, that's when you start playing your best and being able to wear down other opponents. So that's good stuff. Okay, so we definitely have to get into things that we didn't like, but before that, we got to pay a bill. And my segues are not as good as my dad's, and they're never going to be, because I think they are cheesy. So I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to run the ad.
Let me tell you about Beaches LLC. Yes, Beaches LLC is your source in the state of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle for exquisite quartz sand beach pools by BioDesign USA. A BioDesign beach sculpted pool is crafted with beach entries, customized seating areas, and swimming zones, and they all can be personalized to your swimming needs. The BioDesign swimming pool is meant to immerse you in your surrounding environment. The illusion of a truly beautiful beach can be created and extended onto the patio area, creating one seamless shore environment. Let them help you turn your dream backyard escape into reality with an eco-friendly, more durable, less time, and less expensive to maintain, totally customizable pool. To learn more about turning your dream into a reality, please visit their website at www.yourbackyardbeach.com.
All right. So the quick math here.
I could have done that ad right there. I mean, that looked like a lot of relaxation, my friend.
I know.
I need that. I don't know what that is, but I need that. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking I could do my prep work in that
in your backyard on a beach.
Yeah, Lord have mercy. I mean, do they do work in Alabama? I mean,
yes, they do work in Alabama and Florida.
Okay.
Kelly, you're gonna have to. We're gonna have to educate Mr. Ryan Fowler here.
Okay. I'm in. I mean, I need to see one ad and I'm in. That just, listen. I mean, I'm back here in the country. We have I have a pond here, and I used to have a hot tub, and it went out, and I haven't replaced it. But man, I love the relaxation side because, I don't have a physical job. I have a mental job. It's a stressful mental job. It's not physical. It's just mental. So relaxation is key. And I'm fired up. So let's continue.
All right. Well, my math says we've been talking about 45 minutes on the positives. So I hope that you've got a little more than 15 minutes because we still have to hit the transfer portal after this.
Oh, I got. I mean, I don't go to bed at midnight. I'm good.
All right, cool. So what are some of the negative takeaways, I should say? It may not be all that bad, but things that you think that we need to improve on, things you didn't like, things you may be concerned about.
I think it's life without Nick Saban. It's life without Will Reichard.
Okay.
Maybe that may be tomorrow's show. Will we miss Will Reichard more than we'll miss Nick Saban?
Oh, immediately, yes. I mean, I think anytime you're missing college football's all-time leading scorer, like dude's got more points.
But that is a great question, is it not? Because it's almost like I feel much better about Kalen DeBoer replacing Coach Saban. This transition has been amazing for the transition. And I think it says a lot about Kalen DeBoer that he wants Coach Saban around this program. And he's not, he believes in his system. But, when you look at that kicker, we took it for granted.
Yeah.
That a 45-yard kick, hey, boom, boom.
That's money. That's 3 points.
That doesn't happen in the world of college athletics. If you want to go Will Reichard, it didn't happen. I'm a little concerned about the kicker. I'm a little bit concerned. Well, okay. Elijah Pritchett at left tackle gave up a lot of pressure. Okay. I know that young man can play better than he showed on Saturday. And I'm not going to pile on, but let's just look at it for just a couple of minutes, because you deal with young men all the time in high school.
Mm-hmm.
It's a roller coaster of a life, right? There are high moments, there's low moments. Think about Elijah Pritchett. Caden Proctor leaves.
Yep.
He says, okay, left tackle's mine. It's mine. Well, then all of a sudden now he's coming back. You could see he was playing with very little confidence. Now, how do you switch that out? Is he willing to go down and battle for the right tackle spot? Because left tackle was not his strength. He was giving up a lot of pressure. Really, the quarterbacks it was almost like the left tackle didn't do a lot of blocking, and I don't know what they graded out. I'm not public information for that. I can't find it, but we could go back and do some self grades on that. But that left tackle, I like Elijah, but it was not a good day. Not a good day. I thought on the other side, Wilkin Formby, and even times with Miles McVay, I thought they did okay. So I was pleased with the tackles, understanding what I was looking at. Left tackle, no, it just was not good. Interior, no bad snaps. I know you keep telling me to go negative, but I mean, there was a lot of things there that I thought that was so much positive. Let's see if there's anything else that jumped out to me as far as negative. I already told you that I thought Jalen Milroe really took a lot of steps in this game. I saw some confidence in him, and I think that position's all about playing. If you've got confidence and you believe in the system, and I think Kalen DeBoer is going to make him comfortable in that system, where when he runs out against Western Kentucky or he runs out against LSU, that he's going to be comfortable in the system that he's in. We've already talked about wide receiver. Let's talk about defensive line just for a minute, JT. Did you see a playmaker on that side of the football? Because I saw some role players, but I don't know if I saw. But to be fair, Jaheim Otis is battling with injuries, and Kalen DeBoer said that he would be back if practice was going another week, that he would be back on the practice field. So that means that he's getting close to being healthy. Young man, stay focused, because this time next year, you're going to need deeper pockets in your pants. Go home, let your mom cut you some deeper pockets, because you're going to fill them pockets up in the NFL. When you look at, his size, the ability, defensive linemen, they don't have a ton of those. Jaheim, you're going to make a lot of money. So getting him back out there, maybe he's that dominant guy that we need. And I do like LT Overton, but I just didn't see a lot of flash out there. I didn't see a defensive line that, we're accustomed to here at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody taking over a game and just being dominant, creating a lot of headaches in the middle. I didn't see that. Did you?
I did not. And I'll give you one because
is it a concern for you?
It's not a concern yet. And I'm going to pull up this comment here because we're kind of same mind here. He says, biggest negative takeaway for me was tackling, especially early. Looked like the defense lacked the edge at the beginning. And I agree. That was, I'm in a little Discord with a whole bunch of other Alabama fans, and that was kind of all like, it had gotten to the point where we were trying to figure out, was it intentional? Were they trying not to be physical with the offense? And then I remember like the third play, like Malachi Moore smacked Jem Miller on the on the sidelines. So I was like, well, at least one dude out here is trying to hit. But the reason it was disappointing to me is because when you are learning a new defensive system, like, yeah, maybe you don't fully know all of your checks and what your schemes are and where you're supposed to be at any given time based on the formation or the call or the blitz or whatever. What you can do, regardless of what the scheme is you can run to the football and you can hit the ball carrier with bad intention. And I thought for the first half of what I was watching, that wasn't it. They were making contact with one of my biggest pet peeves is making contact behind the line of scrimmage, and the ball carrier still picks up 6, which yards after contact is not. That was not great to start the game, and I know the coaches were not pleased with that. And we did get confirmation that was not intentional. They did kind of turn it up at the end. They looked a little bit better. But I don't know what was going on. I mean, it's nice to see running backs breaking tackles, but they shouldn't be breaking that many tackles, right? That's kind of, it's a little bit of concern, but then you got to, you have to find out what the underlying cause is. I don't know. Maybe they're not hitting too much practice. Maybe they just need to warm up a little bit. I don't know. I'm not there. I'm just telling you what I saw on TV. And I have full confidence that kind of stuff will get fixed. The other thing that I saw was, I think that I don't think we are where we need to be on the back end defensively yet. I think that comes with time. And like we learned, they're teaching a new technique for pattern matching and which way you're supposed to turn and where your eyes need to be. And we're not going to pattern match all the time. We're going to match if the quarterback's looking to your side and all those kind of things. That's going to take time to rep and get used to. I've seen that firsthand. We pattern match at my school because that's what I like to do. And it's not an easy teach. It took us, we start spring ball in 2 weeks. We didn't get really good at it until June 30th last year. And we were working it every day. And so that took us about 2 months before we were good at it. So I give those guys a little bit of leeway there. But I do think that we are very young. We don't have enough experience there yet. And as much as I like Xavier Brown, and I think that he's a technician with his footwork, with his hands and all those kind of things, I'm not sure, at least right now. By the fall, things can be totally different. But I'm just talking about right now. I don't know if he's ready for that Husky role. I don't think that he's there. Benjamin Sanders says Bray Hubbard showed he's really ready for the big stage. Ryan and JT, I think he's he's better than I thought he was. But I didn't see personally. I didn't look at it and say that dude's a starter. But that's just me. Maybe I need to go back and watch it. But there were only a handful of guys that I thought, yeah, that guy needs to start. That guy needs to start. Yeah, I agree. We need more. We need a little bit more experience with at DB. I'm not sure, how I feel about Damani Jackson and the crew yet. But again, they're 3 weeks in the pads, so it ain't all doom and gloom. There were good things to be seen. I don't think Austin Mack is ready yet. I think he's clearly your third quarterback.
18 until June.
Oh, we'll see.
He's already got a year under his belt in the college system.
Yeah, so they've got plenty of time. I do think they're probably going to have to make some kind of addition in the portal defensively. I don't know.
I agree.
I don't know if they've got to go. I don't know how much they need on offense. I think they would like to have I think they'd like to have another receiver if he kind of just fell out of the sky. I don't know if they're going to be in hot pursuit to go get one, but I think if there's any position they need to go get, they need to go find a Husky or a star in old vernacular. They got to go find somebody to take over that role because I'm not sure, with very few exception, Minka Fitzpatrick, I don't know if we got any of those guys that can play that position right now at the level that we need to play them, or that they need to play right now. So, still saw some good things, but I think there are some things they're going to need to be addressed potentially with the portal. So,
we go through all these different negatives. As I'm sitting there, okay, now if we're talking 2 weeks from now and there's not a lot of portal entries, then you have to be a little bit concerned because you've had a coach that said, hey, we've got to have more depth at that offensive line. It's almost like these things here that we're talking about, they're fixable. They're fixable. Especially now in the world of college football, you should be able to fix, if you need a kicker, you should be able to go out and get a kicker. If you need
I forgot about the kicker. Yeah, no, they gotta find a kicker.
Yeah, they gotta find a kicker. Oh man, it looked like me out there kicking at times. So I don't know. That's a little bit of a problem. They're gonna have to go recruit somebody, bring somebody in, whoever it is. But punter's gonna be great. No problem there. You got one more year with him, but. You start looking at kicker. Kicker's going to be an issue. Tight end, I feel like they're okay there. Wide receiver, I guess if you had one of these studs that are transferring in and you could use him, that might be an option. But you go through. How about an edge guy? Do you think they would take an edge guy if they could? Let's say there was an edge guy that said, "Hey, I'm going into the portal. I'd love to see what you guys are doing in Tuscaloosa." Would you look at a strong edge guy?
I'm gonna steal an Urban Meyer quote, even though I loathe Urban Meyer as a person. But if a 5-star shows up, were we just supposed to tell him no, he can't come? Like, of course he can. So if you got one of those guys, yes, I would take a look. Now, you only get 85 scholarships, and I think they're at 83. So you've got to be super selective, or say that again.
And especially if you don't lose any kids in the portal, right? Subtraction, addition. So you may be, if you've only got 82 to give, you're at the point now. What are you going to do? Start pushing people out? I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah, well, it's the transfer portal thing's kind of a double-edged sword, right? April 15th is the time that you can get in the portal, but it's also cut day. I mean, really, it's when you start telling guys, hey, which I think is kind of like what's going on with the basketball team, right? You tell, hey, we're trying to bring these dudes in. We need to clear up some scholarship room. You need to find a new place to play.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know if he's going to tell anybody to kick rocks. I don't know that he needs to. But if he's not going to, you have to be super selective with those last two spots on what you're going to do. I do think there'll probably be some guys that you might tell, hey, it ain't really working out here for you, which always sucks, but it's the reality of the sport now. So where do you think, like, biggest need? You have one spot, you got one scholarship to give. I'm not asking for a person who you'd give it to, but like, who's the spot?
See, I mean, what I need to do is I'm going to call you right before I do my show because you're just giving me all this prep sheet. Okay, one player. Where would you go? Only one. Only one.
I saw your mouth moving, but I didn't actually hear what you said. You cut out for a second.
I hadn't said anything. I'm sorry. I was. I'm thinking. I know radio silence is what they teach is never good. But let me just say this. Is there any chance that you could go? I mean, if you could go find a true left tackle, put Caden Proctor at right tackle. That offensive line is a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. So I mean, think about that. So if you ask me that one position that I would work and sell Wilkins going to be a big-time player. But he might need another year to get more physical, to get more, could he play? I think he could play. Yes. So bring Caden back, flip him to left, bring in a true left tackle, then I would feel great about that offensive line. So if you're asking me one guy, there's the one guy. Yeah, I mean, if we go out and get an All-American corner and we could bring him in, yeah, you need that. But to me, with that position, you fix your offensive line. Go get a left tackle. There's not many of those out there, so this scenario is probably it's just it's a brain, it's a pipe dream. But go out and get a left tackle. He plays left. Caden Proctor continue to lose weight, getting physical shape, because at times he showed that he was vulnerable against those speed of those rush. So put him over at right tackle. We're going to throw the football a ton, JT. We're going to have to protect the quarterback. So when you look at Caden Proctor, can they get him without – he's missed a full entire spring where you really needed to focus on getting better. When you look at that, could they flip him to right, come and get a left tackle out of the portal, bring him in, just like a Tyler Steen a couple of years ago. Bring a Tyler Steen in. Serviceable left tackle, fix it. Now, if you gave me two, I'd definitely go to the defensive back. Where would you go, JT?
I would go defense first. I think
but
that
you're a
there's
defensive
some
minded guy, though.
I know. So my bias is showing a little bit. Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, Lando, because I forgot. We cannot get anybody from the SEC without them having to sit.
Well, that rule is going to be going away. Did you guys see where the NCAA put a rule in today where they could transfer as many times as they wanted and they would be eligible immediately?
Yeah.
There's no way
that's because they lost in court.
That's right. So that rule is going out. That SEC rule, it holds no water. It'll be a matter of time. They'll resolve that thing. I believe.
Yeah, we're actually having a chat in the chat about Michigan sanctions, and I was basically saying that the NCAA can't do shit to nobody. They can investigate all they want to, but there's nothing that I don't think the NCAA is even worth having a building anymore. I think that we probably have enough to be good enough to do things if we have a weak link on the offensive line. You can slide protection, you can get the ball out quickly, you can RPO people to death, but I don't the way that I believe that the defense is going to be run and what they're going to be relying on and how they're going to use that nickel. You can't hide that dude. That's a matchup nightmare waiting to happen. If that dude can't run, for instance, I'm not saying he can't run. That it sounds bad. Somebody's gonna clip it, take me out of context. But Germie Bernard coming from the slot, running across the field away from Xavier Brown. If that's something that happens regularly, you're going to lose a lot of ball games. And my thought is always, as the defensive coach, you can absolutely, and the Bears proved me right, you can absolutely win a game without your offense. The offense doesn't have to score anything. If the other team doesn't score, they don't win. And, oh, by the way, you can score on defense. So I think that's where you've got to fill the holes first, because I think that's a glaring one. I'm kind of trying to just get an update here on who's in the portal. I was looking earlier today, but some of us actually have a day job and have to do stuff.
It's been slim. Really, I had a reporter on the day who covers. That's all he does is cover the reporter. He looks at a computer and hits F5 just
all day,
nonstop, right? All day. I mean, that's his job of just trying to see. And he said the biggest excitement was Old Dominion had put in like 18 guys in the portal. So I guess they're going to be new Dominion. It's not going to be Old Dominion.
I'm seeing a lot of Eastern Michigan guys in here right now too. And I only bring that up because my coach in college is the coach at Eastern Michigan right now. So I wonder what's going on there.
Coach in college.
Chris Creighton.
Okay. So there's a lot of guys that are Alabama ties that are up in, and I don't know if it's Eastern or Western. You got Jim McElwain, who coached at Alabama. He's up there. And then you also have Lance Taylor that's coaching. I believe it's Eastern Michigan. That is another guy that's up there. That's an Alabama guy.
I've got a few ties now because my defense coordinator at my first defense coordinator is the defense coordinator at Arizona State right now.
Where did you play at, JT?
Drake University in Des Moines.
Okay.
Des Moines, Iowa.
I'm gonna look it up.
Oh, look.
I know he was coaching.
Justin says Lance is at Western. George Teague is in the chat. Hi, welcome. Yeah, we're over time.
Get here when you can, George.
Yeah, if you end up just jumping in, you'll take over Ryan's face, but we'll fix that out. But
he's at Western. Yeah,
we need an F5 guy while we're at work, while he's at work. So yeah, no, I agree. We definitely differ a bit of where we would go. I kind of expect that though. I definitely defense first. I will admit that bias. So
they may have fixed this portal with these collectives because you're not seeing them. All we heard was how big the portal was going to be, and it has been underperforming at a rapid pace. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of spring games the upcoming weekend, like Texas A&M's this weekend, Mississippi State's this weekend. I believe there's another one in the SEC. There's a ton in the ACC. There's a ton in the Big Ten. So their spring game is upcoming.
Oh, I lost your audio. It's Did they die on you?
How about that?
Oh, there you
Is
go.
that better?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, sorry about that. My AirPods just died,
Yep.
so I put them right. Yep, no problem. But yeah, you do look at that spring game. Will it heat up? Will it heat up? And then, okay, if it doesn't heat up, you know what's going to happen, JT. They're going to start throwing money because a lot of these teams are desperate, right? LSU needs defensive linemen bad. I mean, probably worse than we need tackles bad. They need tons of defensive linemen. You got one of the best defensive line coaches out there, Bo Davis, but I mean, he can't make chicken salad out of chicken crab. We saw that defensive group last year. I mean, he's trying to mold them into something being serviceable because in this league, you've got to be strong in the trenches. I mean, we open our show talking about rushing the football.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're a defensive line, good luck. I mean, they're going to run on you all night, and it's going to really, put you behind the eight ball. So then when you start looking, if we're not going to have a lot of these volunteers to jump into the portal, is there an incentive? Does the price go up? I mean, if you're a guy that, that you can get some money in the portal, does that portal price now go up from $750,000 to $1 million? I mean, does it go up based on need? Hey, I'm in a needed position. Auction it off.
Well, my econ teacher, Miss Santos, would say yes. Supply and demand curves and all that stuff. You have to wonder though, like if the price goes up beyond what anybody's willing to pay.
Sure. But you got to remember, some of these coaches on the hot seat, they need it. I look at Auburn, for example. Auburn needs a quarterback, but it's almost like they're not worth the spending on a quarterback. So you mean to tell me you're going to ride and die with Peyton Thorne? I believe I'd go get me a quarterback.
Well, I'm sure there's some out here. Let's see. This comment says you really can't take anything from an SEC in the spring portals. The player has to sit out the coming season. So then, yes, for the coming season.
But that Ryan said on April the 17th of 2024, that rule will be thrown out. There's no way that because it would only do a disadvantage to the SEC. It does a disadvantage to the SEC. We've thrown this transfer rule out. This thing's going by the wayside. There's no way that rule stays in. When we get to Sandestin and the SEC spring meetings coming up the end of May, right there before Memorial Day, that meeting, they'll throw that out because college football's opened it up. That rule no longer matches with the current direction of college athletics in the Southeastern Conference.
D says the NCAA has no teeth when it comes to NIL transfers. Ain't no judge saying they can't enforce rules regarding the actual games. They want an excuse to show they can do something too. I'll have to look into this because my understanding was that the sign stuff was only a Big Ten rule. I don't know that was an NCAA rule. So citation needed on that. Got me a 40-yard touchdown though, so my football ego is still good. So did you happen to see the alumni flag football game? Were you around for this?
No, I was actually don't tell anybody, but I slipped in.
Don't tell anybody, as we have hundreds of people watching live right now.
I was in the Coleman and we did the barbecue. By the way, one of George's old teammates called me late Friday night and said, Hey, I got a couple of extra tickets. Martin Houston said, hey, I want you to go with me this Tide Pride lunch. And I said, man, if they bust us in there, we're going to get all kind of trouble. He said, come on, we'll hide in the back. And I did. I hid in the back. There was people taking photos of him. A few people wanted to ask me a bunch of questions. We were just trying to blend in because we wanted to hear what Kalen DeBoer said. Now, I will tell you something he said in there
that I think we haven't discussed. He said we haven't thrown any interceptions in any scrimmage. That continued on Saturday. But then a little bit of caveat to that is he thinks his quarterbacks could be a little bit more aggressive and take some of those shots. He said, if you throw 3 passes, but you should have thrown 10, and you say, well, I played great football. Well, you didn't, because there was balls that could have been completed there. But I think they'll get there, man. I'm pleased with Jalen Milroe coming out of spring to where he is now, and he's comfortably in that number 1 spot.
Oh yeah, I don't think it's close. I don't think there's any kind of QB controversy going into the fall. I think it's very clear who the number 1 quarterback is. Maybe there's a debate for 2. There's a tie for second, but I think that's pretty much nailed down. So with that, we've hit all the things that I had to talk about, and we're right on hour 15. So, is there anything else that you'd like to discuss while you're here?
Well, I mean, I just continue to thank the fans because they've embraced Kalen DeBoer. And I think that I'm going to tell you, there's going to be some rough patches. We're probably going to lose a game that we're not supposed to lose. We're in a situation now where this is not Nick Saban. We don't make the championship. I think really a good, fair expectation is 10-2. If you can do 10-2, make the playoffs, I think that's a big successful year. And as long as you beat Auburn and Georgia and everybody else, and I'm not even sure 10-2, maybe 11-1. But reasonably expectations. The world of college football has changed. It's a lot harder to manage a roster, and I think Kalen DeBoer's system is going to set it up where it's going to be easier to manage that roster. I'm excited about what this guy is going to be able to do. I just think the personality, I think he's genuine. He's authentic to who he is. He doesn't try to be somebody he's not. I think that's going to pay dividends in that room, that locker room. I think that locker room picks up on it. I'm already seeing it. I'm seeing the way he's reacting. I'm not talking about being a player's coach and out here throwing, what's the sandbags, cornhole and all that. I'm sure. But it's just, there's a different energy in that building that it hasn't been there in 20 years. That's energizing. And that helps. And I think that's where this Alabama football team is. I think it's quicker. It's at a different pace. It's a pace that we really, if you'd asked me what the Nick Saban transition was like, I could have probably described a couple of nightmare stories because I've seen those here in Tuscaloosa. I've seen coaches lose their job and only make it a semester. Well, Kalen DeBoer has embraced Nick Saban. He's not been this guy that, hey, we want him here, but we don't want him here. No, he's like, I believe in my system. Nick Saban's got a great system. Why would I not use this guy? I'd be a fool not to use this guy to help me navigate some of these waters. So he's going to use him. He's going to use him as an advisor. He's going to use him as a consultant. He's going to use him to call him to say, hey, how would you do this? I like that, to be able to navigate this water. And I think it says a lot about Kalen DeBoer, and I said this earlier, that you can keep the guy that is the legend in the same building and that's not a problem, that doesn't put you in an uncomfortable area where, your team can, well, this is not the way Nick Saban did it. Go down there and ask him or whatever. It just seems like that Kalen DeBoer is very comfortable in who he is and the system that he operates. He believes in it. And I'll tell you something else. I've not told anybody. He just bought a house. You know where he bought his house at?
Across the street from Nick Saban.
There you go.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it then.
There's somebody that not a lot of people know, but I just shared one with you that, so, I mean, he's embracing Nick Saban. He's embracing Nick Saban. I think this has been an easier transition than most of us thought.
Yeah, I think so too. It was a little weird not seeing the pink suit standing behind the offense on a day, and having a new face in a hoodie, but it's the new era, and I'm excited to see. Where the season takes us.
Me too. I'm super excited, and if we can find a way to beat Georgia, if we can find a way to go 11-1, and you make the college football playoffs, they'll need some therapists. Will need some work out here in the SEC world, because I can't imagine beating Georgia and putting the dogs in a crying fetal position, because they thought that Nick Saban retired, and they thought, oh man, Alabama's going to bring in a weaker coach. We're going to get him. If Kalen DeBoer finds a way, and if he beats him the first time, chances are he could beat him the second time in Atlanta.
I got two interesting stats or facts, I shouldn't say stats, two interesting facts that I found absolutely hilarious. The first one is Kirby Smart is the last coach to have lost to Nick Saban. And the second stat is Caden Proctor has enrolled at Alabama more times than Georgia has beaten Alabama with Kirby Smart. And I found that to be a hilarious comparison.
And that's why you're a computer engineer, coming up with stats like that. I like the numbers. And you gave me another good prep too, because I want to go back to Indiana and see how they did some of their spring games and see where their run pass, options were there, because it does kind of tell us, okay, who is he? And then how much is he willing to do this? How much is he willing to do this? But I'm excited about the Kalen DeBoer era. I think it's off to a really, really good start, better than I've ever thought it would be, because in my head, I've always thought it was going to be a nightmare. Because it was when Coach Bryant retired. It was. And now to say that you may have a better fit than Nick Saban, that's going to get me in trouble. But it seems like it fits in better with the current direction of college football.
I can see that argument with where college football is heading. Absolutely. Because things are going to have to change more drastically than I think we're ready for. I think there's going to be a lot of things. I think this time is probably going to be super tumultuous, and I don't mean like Alabama. I mean college football as a whole. And at the end of it, we might have to look back and say, there was a phase that the teenage years, I guess, of CFB, the rebirth of having to go through all of this upending of rules that we've had, and maybe we'll come out a little bit more mature on the other side. But for what college football is about to go through in this transition, that might be a pretty good fit. So with that, it's 9:41 Central. It's 10:41 on the East Coast. We appreciate the audience here for sticking with us through this. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Ryan, I'm glad you came and helped me out, so I didn't have to do this by myself, because I was panicking a little bit.
I learn everything, man. I learn from you guys, and I like the way your brain thinks, man. You're an analytical guy. You like the numbers. You study that. To me, I find that fascinating. I love numbers because I think they tell the true story. So anytime I can hang out with you, I just got to get you on my show, and I know you're working in the afternoon.
Hey, no, you're on for like 4 hours. Like, I mean, just tell me, I can look. If I told my manager I'm about to call in and be on a radio show, he can deal.
They'd be okay with that. Okay. Seriously, like I'd love to get you on. If not to tomorrow, how about Friday? I mean, I'm flexible, so I'd love to get you on to talk some spring football, and I feature your dad often, but I love the way that you break down the numbers and kind of the analytics side of things. So we'll talk more about that off the air. But
yes.
Always, man, I always appreciate you guys inviting me and coming on. And I'm going to go eat a little bit of supper here in a minute. And I appreciate the opportunity, as always. Thank you, guys. Thanks to the audience. And that's the reason why JT, myself, George, the reason I do it in Tuscaloosa is because of you guys allowing us to do what we do. And we say thank you. Thank you for all the audience.
Yep, thank you. And Justin, I got your question, but we're gonna have to save it. Maybe I'll ask it on Ryan's radio show about Keanu. All right. So until then, we'll see you next time. We'll be back in 2 weeks again. So deuces.